Breakfast on ABC Radio Sydney.
Twenty-five to 9. It's fair to say that life over the last couple of years has been reasonably chaotic. There's been a bit going on. This morning you're going to hear about a book called The Life at the End of the Tunnel that includes 50 stories from people across Sydney about their time during the pandemic. It aims to capture stories of fear, anxiety, hope and kindness. Emmy Roy is the curator of The Light at the End of the Tunnel. And also joining us is Shantha Viswanathan, who has written one of the stories. Good morning, Emmy. Good morning, Shantha.
Good morning. Good morning, James.
Thanks so much for your time, Emmy. What inspired you to put this book together?
So all of us have been impacted by the pandemic worldwide, and we all reacted differently to it. So I've been listening to a lot of stories throughout this time, probably not any other time in my life. I would have so keenly listened to any of the stories. And, some of them were really intense, powerful, sad, poignant, and sometimes funny. And I thought it's really important to capture some of these stories so that the future generations can actually see how we coped and survived. And the fact is that we've been thrown in the deep end, but we did find that light at the end of the tunnel. And, the human spirit did finally, eventually shine through, to be honest with you.
Many people spent a lot of time during the pandemic reevaluating their lives, thinking about what they were doing, what they might have to do or want to do differently. Did that theme come through?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, we've actually got stories from people in all realms of life, about a lot of different things that they've been doing. So, say, for example, we've got definitely stories of health workers, essential workers, but people who lost their jobs, who moved houses, people who could get qualified, people who built community organizations, did weddings. So, and also people who started, exploring the places around their houses. So all sorts of different things did come through in the book, and I'm so glad that it did.
How did you find all the stories?
So this was an initiative that was, supported by the Blacktown City Council along with a couple of other organizations, CMRC and West Point. So initially the council did a call out, like they did a media release calling out for stories from across Sydney. And then I wrote to several organizations and they helped writing to organizations. We did a lot of social media, posts, and I posted things to different groups across Sydney. And then I also approached people who I knew had very powerful stories to narrate. Some of them said no, which was perfectly fine because it's a personal story, and some of them would find it difficult to share with the general public. But then, some of them said yes, and those are these 50 people.
Shantha, you wrote one of the stories. What's it about?
My story was about a time for gratitude. So thanks to Emmy for encouraging me and being persistent and asking me to write. So, yes, so I do understand that it was a very difficult time, but I looked at it probably from a different lens.
Yeah, well, you brought your perspective growing up in Malaysia. So how did that inform what you wrote?
Well, I recall, in the early days when the pandemic first hit us, there was a lot of comparison to war. And I was just reflecting on that. And over the years, each of us, have at some stage gone through calamity or grief that have affected us and that have, left some unforgettable memories. So personally for me, I remember the times that my family in Malaysia went through, during the Japanese occupation, where my brothers were laborers, child laborers. They went without food. They had to flee on foot when my mother was 9 months pregnant, and all those atrocities that they witnessed. And I thought, is this war? And even today, if we look around and you look at what's happening in the world, I really didn't think it was war. Yes, it was war against an unseen enemy, but it was different. I looked at it, it gave me time to reflect and to think about, so much else that happened back then, and how fortunate we are to live in the present times. And I suddenly was, felt appreciative of today's world, and
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I don't know if you've read some of the other stories, but whatever the pandemic did, and a lot of it was bad and continues to be so, but there was that time for people to reflect and think about their own priorities. And I guess if, like you've had difficult experiences in your past, there's a very different perspectives than if you've, been quite privileged through all your life and had it a little bit easier.
Yes, like everyone else, I too went through sadness and fear about what was happening, especially in the early stages when we didn't have vaccinations. And everyone else's grief or loss became my pain. I found myself crying every time someone lost someone. I found myself crying. What I saw on the media impacted me very much. But then it gave me time to reflect on so many things. And one of the things I noticed was there was a sense of oneness. It was like as if we all belonged to one family. We felt for each other. There was so much kindness, so much compassion around. And then I realized how fortunate I was to live in a country where we've got access to, free health care. And when I saw what was happening in other countries, I thought, we are not that badly, worse off. We've got so much happening for us. So I became... that's how even in my personal life, that's how I handle things that happen. I've also had to go through stuff in life, and I use gratitude as my tool to be thankful for what's happened. Yes.
And Emmy, what's one thing you've learnt from, well, A, the pandemic, and B, putting this collection of stories together?
One special thing that I would say is that these people, and from the stories that I've listened to, so basically with all of us, instead of us waiting for that light at the end of the tunnel to flash upon us, we all learned to see that from within.
Very well said. Thank you so much both for your time. The book is The Light at the End of the Tunnel. I've been speaking with the project lead and curator, Emmy Roy, and one of the writers, Shantha Viswanathan. Thank you both.
Thank you.
You're on ABC Radio Breakfast Sydney.
Breakfast on ABC Radio Sydney.